Hey everyone, it's Connor back from This Old Farm, and today on this fairly half-decent day out, of course it's gotten colder now, I've got some pretty good news for you all. We've had a pretty successful day today, kind of a successful weekend. Now today is actually Monday, of course, and even though I say that it's Monday, I'm still going to consider it a successful weekend because we've got sort of two successors that's happened over this kind of weekday, and the first one I'm going to show you is the Super M. And of course we're not in the machine shed, we're over here with the 706 and the H. We got it running finally, and of course on the day I don't have my camera with. Go figure. But I did get some video with my phone I recorded. We do have some slight issues yet. I got it warmed up. I did the retorquing, and I did the recheck the valves, hot or warm. And we still got a couple of issues. The first of which I think has to do with our buddy that you can barely see, but at the tip of my thumb, Mr. Carburetor. If I flip the camera around, it might do a little better job. There he is, nice and silver there. I think Mr. Carburetor there is giving us some troubles, that he's running a little bit rich, and that might just be some adjustment. I think there might still be some crud in there probably. I did dump almost a full can of Seafoam in this thing, and it's only got about 7 gallons, so whatever that ratio ends up coming out to. I did dump a bunch of Seafoam in there, and kind of hoping that that'll clean it up maybe a little bit. It only ran for 10 more minutes roughly, but with that Seafoam in it. So hopefully that's maybe our issue for it running so roughly. I tried messing with our timing a little bit, kind of behind that nice white brand new resistor, but it didn't really make a whole lot of difference. So I don't think our timing is too terribly off. In fact, I'm pretty positive that it isn't. When I followed Squatch Seniors, if you guys know Squatch 253 on the YouTubes here, he's him and his father, Squatch Senior, went through and did a basically restoration of a Super M. I think I've mentioned that before. Maybe not. Maybe it's in the video to come with this thing back here. But I followed his kind of way of getting this thing set up in time, and it worked pretty good. I think what the issue was, we were having troubles getting it started, and I think what our issue was is that we were super flooded out. And basically, I let this thing sit for a week, maybe 2 weeks. I can't exactly remember how long it was. I went and turned on I kind of decided today I was going to turn on the gas, hit the choke a little bit, hit the button, and away it went. So we got it running, at least. I drove it around a little bit, and what I found is when you kind of get it loaded down, it tries to stall out. And I think that's what our running too rich issue is that it's getting a little bit too much fuel when it bogs down, and it kind of basically floods it out, and it's got too much fuel at that point. So we've got a little bit, like I said, to mess with the carburetor yet, and that's to be expected. That carburetor hasn't been dialed in at all on that machine because it hasn't been running right since, really, and we've been having trouble, noisy cattle, we've been having trouble getting it going even. But we have to come over here to the machine shed to talk about our next subject, which used to be where the Super M is now, of course, and that is Cushing, our Farmall H, the one with the wide front that we got back in 2019 and haven't really used a whole lot and have had some issues with. The most recent being the Governor, the most subjective one lately. And I've got great news for that. We've got that fixed. I went through and got this Governor housing. And I'm going to flip the camera around. It's hurting my hand too much, or my arm holding the camera up anyways. We went through and got this new housing from Cody, or one of the group members of the tractor group, and looks like I didn't tighten a bolt down for some reason. Anyways, when we pulled mine off, I found that that bearing was real loose in the front of the housing. It should be kind of a light press fitting so that that bearing can't slide around and turn and stuff inside of that housing. And what would happen was when it would load down, it would shove that bearing and gear and all that whole shaft that was in there forward, and it would rev it up right up to basically full throttle, wide open. Actually, it probably hit the stop in there of wide open. So we went through and got this new housing from Cody. We put the same shaft that was in the old housing into this one. It ended up being a light press fit. I had to give it a couple taps down with a brass punch. We put on the top piece here because Cody's housing is actually from an M Farmall, but you can use the same housing. You just have to change this vertical piece here that bolts to the top of the housing. So we put the old one back on, or onto this M housing, put the cover on, got everything hooked up, and then it sat for a couple of months. After the last time that I had ran it, it scared me enough. It's scary when this thing goes wide open, so it scared me enough to not want to run it at all for quite a while. And I got the guts to go through and start it up yesterday. It ran fine. It did pretty good, so I took it for a little spin around the farm. It did pretty good. So Dad said, well, why don't you take it down the road? So very nervously, I drove it down the driveway, got out on the road, hit fifth gear, went beautifully. It drove nicely. It pulled the revs down, and when it came up, it didn't go wide open. It went right where the throttle was set. It doesn't pop out of fifth gear. It does pop out of fourth gear. That's an issue I knew about when we were still having the issue with the governor, because, of course, I was able to run this thing a little bit with that governor problem, but just sometimes when it would bog down, I'd like to go full throttle. So we do have an issue with fourth gear, but fifth gear, which is that sliding gear, it's a fourth and fifth sliding gear. So fourth and fifth gear, or the speed for fourth and fifth, are both the same gear, essentially. It's very confusing without being able to actually show you the gear. But you can, if you go check out Kenny Kizel, he's kind of able to, he's went through and rebuilt that Farmall H. He can, his video will be able to show you that fourth, fifth gear, kind of try and do a better job of what I'm trying to explain here. But anyways, it's kind of seems to be common, or at least it's thought to be common, that when fourth gear is popping out, so will fifth. But fifth gear doesn't pop out on this one, amazingly and nicely. And the transmission is just incredibly quiet. It is so nice and quiet. I really think that this tractor is a somewhat low-hour tractor. I mean, of course, it's been sadly abused, as noted on this side of the hood. So we will have to get a new hood. I need to get a PTO guard for this thing. I got the one from Cody's M, not realizing that they are that they're different sizes. So the H one is a bit smaller than the M. So we've got a kind of a wonky PTO guard on there right now. So I have to get the correct PTO guard for this thing. I'd like to have the correct one anyways. You can just take them off, but I'd rather have a PTO guard on. All our other tractors do. So, and then the one that's off of this one is actually an early yeared or early production PTO guard. So I'm going to put that one on Mo, our other Farmall H, because he's a 1941, so he really is meant to have that PTO guard that was off of this thing. So we're pretty much coming down to the bare minimum so far. I do have to put that battery box back on this thing that we so kindly got from that guy, and I really apologize. I can't remember your name now. But there's a video back where we got that battery box for this thing. I have to go through and put that back on. The reason I took it off is because the only battery we have that fits this thing is dead, and I didn't really want to take the time to go through and charge it. So we've got pretty much everything, I think, is getting solved out on this thing. We're down to basically putting on different tin work. We do have to do something in the brakes. The brakes are incredibly basically worn out. You have almost none. And we also had that issue where we had coolant in the oil when I changed it the spring of 2020 there. And I'm not too sure what that is. I want to crack the drain plug. Sorry. I want to crack that drain plug so that I can check to see if it's still getting coolant in the oil. And if it is, we're going to probably be looking at having to do the same doggone thing we did to the Super M and pull the head off. And I really don't want to do that. And that the reason that it's getting water or coolant, antifreeze, into the oil is either the block is cracked, the head is cracked, or we've got a failed head gasket. It'd be really nice if it's a failed head gasket, because then I could just replace the head gasket, put the head back on, get everything put back together. But we really don't know until we go through and pull it all apart. So that's kind of where we're at right now, basically. We now can pretty much use this thing because we don't have that failed governor housing, I guess we'll call it, that the bearing spun in and wore it out. So what we're kind of looking at next is maybe a brake job will come first, I don't know, or an alternator conversion, because this thing has no charging system on it right now. It had a 12-volt generator on it, and that wasn't working at all. So I just tore that off. The wiring was just a mess. And so we're going to have to go through and rewire this thing. We did that to the other Farmall H already, so I kind of have an idea of what's going on. I suppose I could turn the camera back around on my ugly mug. And we also have an issue with this tire down here. It's kind of sitting wonky, and I got to put a new tire on it anyways. I shouldn't say a new one. I've got one from the other Farmall H that we took off because of some rim changeouts, yada, yada, yada. So we've got a tire to put on that. And then we're kind of looking at what's going on with that coolant. Why is that getting in the oil? Is it still getting in the oil? Was that just a fluke thing? Was that, you know, what the reason is behind that? I don't know, and we'll have to find out. We'll have to discover a little bit. But at least we got it running. At least we got it usable. Everybody's running now on the farm. We got every tractor's running, so, which is a nice feeling. Everything's pretty much getting to the point of being fixed, or getting not so major of a fix, kind of, I should say. So now I can actually use Mr. Cushing here, which I'd really like to use because he's a really nice tractor. He runs really good. He's nice and quiet with this nice IH muffler on him. And the rear end is so quiet. It helps having the wide front for like raking hay and that. We got the M diesel fixed, obviously. We did some repairs on the other Farmall H, which is going to be a video to come out. We, of course, have the Super M fixed up now, it seems. So everything's getting down there. It's getting nice to be checking things off that list and getting them out. So that's all I wanted to share with you guys for this week, for this farm update. Hopefully you enjoyed, and next week we'll get out another sort of quote-unquote regular video. I'd like to get out the video of our international dump truck. And that's another thing I got to look at yet. There's a couple of possibilities, but I'll explain that in a video for that truck on its own. So anyways, from me and Cushing, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll talk to y'all next time.